what we're going to do next while is, we're not there, Tanya. We're going to learn muktza. Okay, on Shabbos there's something called muktza. We'll discuss the reason for it and a lot of the practical details of muktza. Muktza actually means removed from the mind. It's separated from the mind. And as we get along with the dinim, the laws of muktza, we'll see what that means. Now, muktza is rabbinically forbidden. In other words, muktza is not biblical. It's not one of the 39 halachos of Shabbos, which are biblical, that you get capital punishment or a korban or anything like that. It's rabbinic of nature. And there's three reasons why the Chachamim instituted the concept of muktza. Number one, the Chacham said like this. We learn out from Psukim in Nevi'im that you're not allowed to walk on Shabbos like you walk during the week. You're not allowed to talk on Shabbos like you talk during the week. Shabbos is a different day. Okay, according to Halacha, you're not allowed to run on Shabbos unless if you're running to a mitzvah. Like this, on Shabbos, you're not allowed to run. You're not allowed to talk business. You're not allowed to, So the Chacham said like this. If Shabbos is different as far as walking and eating and all that stuff, so therefore we have to make it different even as far as objects that you move. So the Chacham instituted muktza that because we find all the other things the Chacham said, the Torah says you're not supposed to do, so they added this concept of muktza. Another reason why the Chacham instituted, these three reasons the Alter Rebbe brings down, by the way. Another reason why the muktza is because the Chacham said, if you're going to be able to move and touch and everything, just do everything, we're afraid you're going to carry on Shabbos. You're holding in your hand, you're going to walk out on Shabbos. So by restricting what we're allowed to move, by the way, muktza, as we'll learn, does not mean touching. Something which is muktza, you're allowed to touch. You're not allowed to move it. The only thing you wouldn't be allowed to touch, it says in Halacha, is an egg, which if a chicken laid it on Yom Tif, for Shabbos, it's muktza. So because an egg is round, and if you touch it, it's going to move, so then you can't, you're not allowed to touch it either. But the issue of muktza is basically moving it, not touching it. We'll learn, to give you an example, we'll learn later, all animals are muktza on Shabbos. Okay, so if you own a dog is muktza on Shabbos. You can't pick it up, you can't carry it. If you have a bird, you can't carry it. Whatever, you're not allowed to carry it. But if somebody has a dog and they want to pet the dog, they're allowed to, because they're not moving it. They're not moving it. They're touching it. Touching your muktza, you can touch.
You can touch anything that is muktza?
Yeah, we'll discuss certain things. I'm just giving you an example of that muktza means touching, not moving. There's a lot of things that Chacham instituted are muktza, and for various different reasons. A lot of poskim write, it's unclear why certain things that Chacham made muktza, certain things that Chacham didn't make muktza. But what they said, and what they didn't say, they didn't say, and that's it. This is what they write. Okay, so that's also because of carrying. Another reason of muktza is because there are people that don't work a whole week, believe it or not. So for them, how is Shabbos different? It's like they're not doing anything anyway on Shabbos. So Chachamim gave something that even people that don't work a whole week, for Shabbos is different. What are they doing different than Shabbos? They have to be careful what they're moving around. What they're touching, moving, not touching, but moving. So therefore, these are the three reasons why the Chacham instituted muktza. Now, the historical concept of muktza is like this. When they were building the second base of Mikdash, in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah and those great rabbis, so the dinim of Shabbos became extremely, extremely lax. People were very, very not careful about Shabbos. So when people are not careful about something, then you try to tighten the belt, so to speak. So Nehemiah it was, not Ezra, but Nehemiah made a takana, basically, everything is muktza except a few utensils that you need, eat, and this. Those are not, everything is muktza. That's what he made up, just to tighten the belt for Shabbos. Then, when people became more careful in Shabbos, and they started taking away the certain prohibitions, and therefore muktza is left the way it is now. You know, what's allowed, what's not is allowed, and what's not allowed is not allowed. Okay, now, there are different categories of muktza. Okay? We're going to say the different categories, and then we're going to go into each one, because each one has a lot of...
I didn't put it down when you looked at it.
because a lot of them are now, there's something called keli shemalachtai leheter. A keli shemalachtai, its primary use is leheter, for something permissible. I mean, the main reason why you use it, for instance, a table. By the way, everything, even scientifically, is a utensil. A table is a utensil, a chair is a utensil, everything's a utensil. So, something which is keli shemalachtai leheter, meaning something whose primary use is for permissible things on Shabbos, are not muktza at all. Even though poskim write, it's very interesting, there's an expression in halacha, they write, but for no reason you shouldn't move it at all. But mamish, to move for no reason you shouldn't do it. And other poskim add, okay, that's what it says, but realistically, if I want to move it, obviously I'm doing it because there's a reason I'm moving it. I want to play with it, or even just, so they don't understand exactly the concept of what it means, that for no reason at all you can't move any muktza, except cutlery and things pertaining to food. That is mamish. No problem. But anyway, the definition of keli shemalachtai leheter is a vessel whose primary use is for something permissible, is not muktza on Shabbos. As we learn muktza, we'll see there are certain things which are completely muktza. You can't move them for any circumstance. Completely muktza. Obviously, to save a life, you can move it. Or if there's something muktza that's dangerous, then you're allowed to move it, obviously. Okay? But there are certain things which are totally muktza, which means you can't move them for any reason whatsoever. And we'll get into all the categories. This is all about muktza. This whole book. One of many, by the way. Then there's something which is a very practical aspect of muktza, is called keli shemalachtai leisser. A utensil, a keli, whose primary use is for something forbidden. The primary use of it is for something forbidden. On Shabbos, for instance, a pen, you're not allowed to write on Shabbos, correct? What's the purpose of a pen? The purpose of a pen is to write. So therefore a pen is a keli shemalachtai leisser. A hammer is made to do construction. Construction is not allowed on Shabbos, correct? So therefore a hammer is a keli shemalachtai leisser. A scissors is made to tear and to cut. You're not allowed to cut and tear on Shabbos. So a scissors, there's hundreds of examples. We're going to go because it's extremely, extremely practical. So kelim shemalachtai leisser are stricter, which means like this. You're only allowed to move it if you need the place it's on, or you need it to do something permissible with it. For instance, we said a hammer is a keli shemalachtai leisser. Its primarily used is for forbidden things, because it's used for construction. Construction is forbidden on Shabbos. What happens if I want to take a hammer to crack open a nut? I'm allowed to crack open a nut on Shabbos. Yeah? So then I would be allowed to take the hammer to crack open a nut. It's called tzorech gufay. I'm using it for itself, for something permissible. Another...
It's not permissible to open a nut.
Why, you can open a nut on Shabbos.
Without the Rebbe saying not to open it?
Now, the Rebbe says you have to be careful, and therefore it's better not to eat it. You know how many people crack nuts on Shabbos?
No, but is it right?
I'll give you another example. There's something called the phone book. Oliver Shalom.
I was going to say.
True. I haven't.
I still get them every so often.
I do.
Okay, it's a whole
They go
different,
right in the garbage
a whole
can.
different style. Okay,
It's a yellow page. Yeah.
but years ago, the phone books were this thick,
Yep,
right? Okay.
we know that.
So phone book, by the way, is a keli shemalachtai leisser.
Oh,
What's the primary use of the phone book?
Call somebody.
To look up a phone number.
Oh,
That was the main purpose of it. Now, you can't call somebody on Shabbos. So a phone book, technically, again, we're going to learn there's hundreds of examples of all this stuff, is a keli shemalach listen. But what happens if I need a phone book that a kid should, sit up higher? So I want to put,
That's useful.
That's what he used to do, right? Okay, what did they do? They would put a thick phone book on the chair and the kid would sit. Okay, now would I be allowed to move the phone book for a kid to be able to sit on the chair? Yes. Would I be allowed to open the phone book to check a phone number? No. But, by the way, I'd be allowed to open the phone book to find an address. Let's say I want to go to somebody's house for Shabbos, to visit them on Shabbos, whatever. I want to visit somebody's house on Shabbos. I don't remember where they lived. So I'll take the phone book. Years ago, they used to take a phone book, and now the phone number, but the address, and that's allowed. So then if I wanted to use a phone book for to find somebody's address or to pop up a kid, I would be allowed to do it. I'm just giving you examples of a keli shemalach l'ism. So that's one way I'm allowed to do it. So if I want to use the hammer, the phone book, for something permissible. Another way it would be allowed is tzarich mekaymei, which means I need the place it's on. I need the place where it's on. For instance, Shabbos came, somebody left their pen on the dining room table. So now it's Friday night after Lechbenchen, I have to set the table. And the pen's in the way. So I need to set the table, the pen's in my way. So then I'm allowed to pick up the pen and take it away. Put it away somewhere else. Because I need the place where the muktza is. So there, and it's, again, not all muktza. This is keli shemalach telis. It's a unique type of muktza. Something which is primarily used for something forbidden, I'm allowed to move it if I need the place, or if I need to use it for something
how about
permissible.
matches?
Matches are total muktza. Again, we're going to discuss. Okay, so let's discuss things that are basically keli shemalach leheter. It's very important to know this also. What is not muktza basically nowadays at all? Okay, for instance, a watch. Interesting. A watch is not muktza, because a watch, you're allowed to tell time on Shabbos, right? So why can I hold a watch on Shabbos? Because I'm allowed to tell time on Shabbos. Therefore, a watch is not muktza at all.
But for a man it is.
No.
Not muktza.
Rabbi used to touch the watch by the fabring to see what time.
Men don't wear watches.
In the street, we don't wear watches. In the street,
Carry.
that's a different story.
Okay.
That's carrying. That's nothing to do with... a watch is basically made to tell time. You're allowed to tell time on Shabbos. Now, there's another problem. If a watch is broken, let's say it's not working, so here it would depend, man and woman, and what type of watch it is. For instance, a man will never... Speaking of the devil.
How honored we are.
Speaking of the devil.
She's not the devil.
Okay, not the devil.
I know.
Okay, now for instance, men, generally speaking, will not wear a watch that doesn't work. They're not going to wear it. So for them, it's a broken vessel. So that's completely muktza, by the way. That muktza we didn't touch yet. But many women, if it's a beautiful jewelry piece, it's a gold watch, a very fancy gold watch, they'll wear it even if it doesn't work. Because the ring is jewelry. Like they wear a bracelet, they wear the watch. So then for women, that wouldn't be muktza. Because they can wear a bracelet on Shabbos, right? Which is itself very questionable. In the Gemara, it says basically you can't wear jewelry on Shabbos. Anyway, but the halacha is that you could. So for a woman, if it's a cheap broken watch, everyday watch, it's not a jewelry piece, if it's broken, it's completely muktza. You can't move it at all, for any reason, because it's broken. But if it's a jewelry piece, an expensive watch, and therefore even if it's not working, the woman would wear it, so then it's not muktza for her. For the man, it would be muktza, not for the woman. That's one thing. Okay, first of all, I'll give you an example. Certain watches would be muktza. For instance, there are...
I watch. iPhone.
See, you're talking up to date. I'm talking about my days. There used to be watches that the face was completely black. You couldn't see a time. You had to press a button to see the time.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those?
Yeah.
The old people in the room would remember it. Yeah.
I would be the
The
only.
young people were not going to. Okay. There were watches that mamish, there were LED watches then. They would mamish be a black face. The only, and you didn't wear it for jewelry. It was not the jewelry piece. They would wear it to be able to tell time. Right now, a lot of people have the phone, so they don't even need to wear watches anymore because what do you need a watch for? You have your iPhone. So, then that would be muktza because you couldn't use it on Shabbos. You couldn't use it on Shabbos because you're afraid you're going to press it, you're going to forget it's Shabbos, you're going to press the button and it'll light up, which is electricity on Shabbos.
It's the same thing with the new watches now that are also computers.
It could be a very big shiloh with the new watches, unless if it just has a simple watch with time and has a bunch of other gadgets, then it's questionable how much you use the watch for.
No, using email, check emails, the messages and meet everything.
Then it would be a big shiloh, halachically, of wearing those watches on Shabbos Tucker.
Whatever this is, I watch.
But some people wear a watch basically. Some people do instead of the phone, they have it on the watch.
Yeah.
So that tackle would be a problem on Shabbos too. Not only to wear in the street, I'm saying even in the house would be.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
I know.
You're getting emails and messages.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So then it's a problem. You can't do it move it on Shabbos because you might come to desecrate Shabbos with it. Now, this is a very interesting halacha. Toys and games that you're allowed to play on Shabbos are not muktza. Games you're not allowed to play on Shabbos are muktza. Got it? Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't only mean electronic games. Even years ago, before pre-existing electronic games, right? There's just still certain games you're allowed to play on Shabbos. Certain games you're not allowed to play on Shabbos. So obviously, if you're allowed to play it on Shabbos, it's keli shemalachta leheter. It's a permissible thing. It's not muktzah at all. Keli shemalachta leiser. If it's a game you're not allowed to play on Shabbos, then it's forbidden to do it on Shabbos. So I'll give you an example.
Scrabble, yeah?
I'll give you an example. We're going to learn a lot. Go through a lot of games and a lot of different things. It's basically one concept. If you look at old halacha, really old. I mean, I personally never saw, but they bring down that in old halacha it says that you're not allowed to play chess on Shabbos. One second. Contemporary halacha, I'm saying the last hundreds of years, right? That you're allowed to play chess on Shabbos. What's the difference? Years ago, many years ago, when they played chess, they would write down the moves. When people played chess, they wrote down their moves. So therefore, the game of chess was associated with writing. So then you can't play chess on Shabbos because the game is basically writing. And you're not allowed to write on Shabbos, therefore you wouldn't be allowed to play chess. Nowadays, that people don't write down the moves. So therefore, Pos can write. It's not maybe in the spirit of Shabbos, but you're allowed to play chess on Shabbos. Okay? Scrabble, which is another issue you mentioned. Scrabble is another issue. With Scrabble could be a few issues. But normally when you play Scrabble, you need to keep score. I mean, you don't play Scrabble for just to making words. You want to see the score, right? So you have to write down the score. That's how you play the game. So therefore, Scrabble is a game you're not allowed to play on Shabbos because you basically write down the scores. If you write down the scores, then the game becomes muktza. It's a keli shemalachta leisser. It's a keli. The game is primarily used for something forbidden on Shabbos. Therefore, it's muktza. You can move it if you need the place, or you need to prop up, or do it with something permissible, you'll be allowed to do it. Scrabble, there's another issue with the problem with Scrabble, depending if it's deluxe Scrabble or the regular Scrabble. Deluxe Scrabble, regular Scrabble, for those educated people in the room that know what Scrabble is all about, you have the pieces with the letters, right? And then you have a plain board, you put the letters down, and that's it. That's not called writing on Shabbos. It's not called writing on Shabbos. But the deluxe Scrabble there's grooves, and then you put the pieces in the groove, that you can spin it around, and the pieces won't go all over the place. That is also shaila of writing. Putting those pieces loose next to each other, it's loose, is not a problem. But when you connect it, like jigsaw puzzles and all that, So then it's an issue with it because you're actually forming letters in a tangible way. So that could be, most poskim hold is forbidden because of writing on Shabbos. So that would also cause Scrabble to be usher on Shabbos. But if somebody technically wants to play chess, checkers, those types of games, technically that wouldn't be forbidden on Shabbos. Now, again, the thing that Chachamim forbid to do on Shabbos, you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. And therefore it's muktza, right? If you're not allowed to do it, then it's muktza. If you're allowed to do it, it's not muktza.
You said something years ago about magnetiles.
We'll get to magnets in a minute. I don't know if we'll get to
Building,
it.
probably. You said no, it was kind of forbidden.
Whatever.
Kind of.
But for instance, the old version is not okay because you anyway write down the score. So it's a game that you play by writing score. Nobody remembers the score in the heart, in the mind. Huh? If you never write down the moves, then you probably would be allowed to play Scrabble. If it's not the deluxe set. But otherwise, most people actually write down the score. You can't do it. For instance, a bicycle, even though you see a lot of Sephardic Jews riding bicycles on Shabbos, and they base it on,
Scooters, bicycles.
Yeah, they base it on Rabbi Yosef, and Yifilka's later chuvas, he said he changed his mind, he did change his mind, anyway. But the way we hold, you're not allowed to ride a bike on Shabbos. Why are you not allowed to ride a bike on Shabbos? Because things that you use that might break and you'll come to fix them, you're not allowed to use on Shabbos. It's a rabbinic zeta. For instance, why is it forbidden, you'll like this one, why is it forbidden to ride a horse on Shabbos? Why can't they ride a horse on Shabbos? So the Gemara says, because you might rip off a branch from a tree to use as a whip. Why can't you go swimming on Shabbos? Because you might build a raft. I'm talking, you still can't swim in a swimming pool, okay, regardless.
But if you're riding a horse, you're causing it to move, and you said you can't make an animal move.
You're indirectly causing it to move. Okay, I didn't get into that yet because we didn't. Muktza, you can move indirectly. You cannot move it directly.
So if I get on a horse.
For instance, the horse is going by itself.
I'm riding a chick.
If you kick muktza, it's not a problem. If you blow muktza, something you can blow on and will move to where you want it, you'd be allowed to do it. We're moving it with an elbow, which is not the normal way. Because again, muktza is rabbinic. So the Chachamim said we're making it forbidden, the normal way of doing it. But if the whole reason is to remember it's Shabbos, basically. So if you're going to do it in a different way, anyway, remembering it's Shabbos. So most of the time you can move muktza kalach. It's called backhanded, not the normal way of moving. Blow a what?
A bug.
Yeah. To blow a bug. Okay, now, another example. Building blocks. They have different type of building blocks. You have the good old-fashioned ones, you take the squares and you put them one on top of each other and they fall down. Okay, that's obviously called, to all opinions, not called construction. Not construction at all, because it's nothing. But what about Legos and remember the Tinker Toys and what was it called right there? Huh?
Magnetile?
Not magnetiles. Oh, come on.
What's
The
building?
the old ones.
Tinker Toys, Legos, bristle blocks, erector sets.
Oh,
What's it called?
Remember those?
erector sets.
Erector sets.
Yeah, sure.
I know because I had a brother that played with it a lot. Erector
That's
sets.
so old.
It is old.
And you were like a little child.
I just said
I'm
that.
not so old.
I just said that.
He's reading from an old book.
No, it doesn't even talk about it. Okay, but Legos is young. Okay. So I saw some people make on Legos. I can't understand why. Most poskim write you can't play Legos on Shabbos because it's actually holding firmly in place.
Event should pick one.
Huh?
Event should pick one.
It's still holding firmly in place. So they're right, kids under 6 for sure could play, under bar mitzvah they make them more. But again, if it's something that you're not allowed to play with because it's boine, it's construction, so if that's the case, then it's muktza, then you can't move it, jigsaw puzzles. Now there's an interesting thing, in the dinim of muktza, the Alter Rebbe brings down 2 opinions if a ball is muktza. Is a ball muktza? Some opinions say a ball is muktza, some opinions say a ball is not muktza. The Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch that the Eilam Nagel Lahakel, the world is lenient and Neim Limcha is biyodam, you shouldn't stop them. The Alter Rebbe says a ball basically is not muktza. You could be makel that a ball is not muktza. Again, if a ball would be muktza, then you couldn't. It's muktza. If you couldn't play with the ball on Shabbos, then it's muktza. If you're allowed to play with it on Shabbos, it's not muktza. So, a lot of these things depends. But it's an interesting thing about playing ball on Shabbos. The Kseiser Shochem brings on a Yerushalmi that says that there was a big neighborhood in Yerushalayim, I think called Tun Malka, I don't remember exactly what it is, and Yerushalmi writes that neighborhood was destroyed. Why? Because they played ball on Shabbos. There was an Eruv, it's not a problem of carrying. Kids playing ball in their backyards, it's always the ball goes over, and then they go over and get it, and they're not allowed to, that's a separate issue. But you're right, even though they were allowed to carry, it wasn't an issue of Chilul Shabbos, of carrying, but their place was destroyed because people spent Shabbos playing ball. It was a very sharp expression about ball playing on Shabbos. But practically speaking, it's not muktza, because if you hold up, you're allowed to play with the ball on Shabbos, then it's not muktza.
It's just not in the spirit of Shabbos.
It's not in spirit of Shabbos, but that can't make it muktza. Muktza would be, if you'd be forbidden to use it, then it would be muktza. But otherwise, it's not muktza. Tennis ball, ping pong, all these things. The fact is, people do play them on Shabbos. Right? Especially little kids. If you have a ping pong table, they play ping pong on Shabbos. Again, the world is makel. Now, what happens with toys that make noise, like whistles, rattles, chimes? Okay, so again, it's a shayla of making a mashmiya kol, making a sound on Shabbos. So they're right, if a kid's old enough to understand chinuch, then they shouldn't be given those things on Shabbos. By the way, which is interesting, Halachos says like this: if the game or the toy is allowed for a little kid, then it's not muktza for an adult either. But you have to be careful not to, like a rattle or a chime or a thing like that. If you want to move it, you can move it. You have to be careful not to make a noise. Not to make a ring or whistle or blow or whatever it is. Okay, let's go to Tanya, and then Hashem will continue.